Hey, Buddha family. So today I'm going to go over some lemon tree tips, tricks, some maintenance. This also applies to lime trees, certain other citrus trees, but the focus is going to be on my lemon tree and what we should do in the winter. So why are we going to grow a lemon tree? Well, one, it's one of the best tasting fruits that you can have. If you grow a fresh lemon and pick it when it's ripe, you can just eat it raw. It's so sweet. So these plants not only smell great, these flowers are some of the most amazing fragrances you'll ever come across, but the fruit it gives you is so delicious. And it's just a really cool plant to grow. So when winter comes around, there's a couple of things. We have to give it light. Now, I'm lucky enough that I keep mine in my greenhouse, and that's enough of the natural light to keep this going. But if, like most people, you probably don't have a greenhouse. So in your home, you're going to need to put it in front of your brightest window. And sometimes that's not even enough. So sometimes you might need to add a supplemental light. Typically 40 watts or so is enough. You don't need something super strong. Get an LED light that's energy efficient. And they're generally pretty affordable, under 40 bucks, I would say. So when it comes time to watering, I water them about once a week. You're really just going to want to give it a light water so that the soil stays moist but not soaking wet. The plant's not growing a lot, even with a full sun window or a grow light up here in the Northeast. It's not going to grow a lot with the colder temperatures and the reduced duration of the light. So once a week, I'll check the soil. I'll feel it with my finger to see if it's wet or dry. It's typically not going to change much once you get it in its established spot. So for me, I know in this greenhouse, I water this plant once a week. When it comes to fertilizer, they're not growing a ton, even if they have lemons starting like mine does. They're just not using it. So I dilute the fertilizer. I use half strength fertilizer and I fertilize the plant twice a month or once every 2 weeks. So water weekly, fertilize half strength every other week. You're going to want to watch out for pests. Spider mites especially love lemon citrus trees. So I have a few videos up that you can go back to see how to identify them and the damage to look out for. But you're going to want to check your plant, the leaves, once a week at least, because if it starts, you want to squish it early, because once they get established, spider mites are very hard to eradicate. So when it comes time to pruning, I've found that you can really prune these any time of year. Now, the winter is typically the best because it's not growing a lot. You can typically see any of the dead branches if the leaves kind of fall off. But you can do this in summer. For example, my lemon tree didn't produce any lemons all growing season. It just started to produce the lemons in like October. So all summer, I just had a big leafy plant. I could have pruned it at any point during that summer. And so now, even though they have lemons, I'm still going to prune it. I'll go through and see any dead branches that didn't make it. I'll see any that have crossed through. And yes, that may require cutting off some lemons, but that's okay. But my next point is that these Meyer dwarf lemon trees are so prolific at self pollinating that they often have way more lemons started than this plant can produce. Now, this is what may look like a good sized lemon bush, but it's not a tree. So, a plant like this can probably handle 30 lemons, give or take, depending on how much care I give it. But right now, if I was to count all the baby lemons, there's well over 150. It's so many. So what will happen is that the plant will start to abort fruit. The weaker fruits will start to yellow and fall off. So if you've ever had a flower cluster of lemons start and they're all little green and they're looking beautiful, and then you start to see them yellow and fall off, it's not your fault. A lot of the times the plant is just controlling itself. It knows that it can't produce this many lemons in this size pot. So it's aborting them, and it will basically balance itself out with the correct amount of lemons. Now, if you let your plant go dry or freeze, or you expose it to some extreme stresses, that can cause the lemons to drop too. But if everything's good and your lemons drop, it's completely normal with these trees. I'll bring in and show you. But those are some care and maintenance tips for your winter citrus trees. And now let me bring in and show you some close-ups. Remember, before you get started, lemon trees and other citrus trees sometimes have thorns. This one definitely does. So before you go in there or when you buy one, make sure you check it. I don't want you or your kids or your pets getting hurt. So these thorns are pretty sharp. So Make sure you're careful if it does have thorns. A lot of times what I'll do is I'll try to like kind of break the thorns off when they first start in the new growth, when they're not really hard. That way I don't have to deal with them in the future. But something you want to keep an eye out for. And so here we can see that I have a dead branch. So I'm going to want to prune this off. So what I'll do is I'll follow this back to where the stem has died. Here it meets, but this part's dead too. So I'm going to just keep following this back to where it meets a healthy growth point, which is the main stem. Now we can just prune that out, free up some space in here. Here we can notice another dead one. It's a pretty good sized one. Again, I'm going to follow all the way back. We'll get rid of that big chunk. You can see the color. There's no green vegetation, so this is dead. And here's a good opportunity. Can you see these leaves? How they look speckled? Well, that's actually spider mite damage. That's from last year. So here you can see the new leaves, nice and green. That's what they should look like. When you come down here, you can see all the speckled yellowing leaves. Those are last year's spider mite damage. So they actually never really recover. And that's why it's important to keep an eye out for these. And you can see the new growth all looks good. And that's what we want. You start to see the new growth look like that. You're going to want to check for spider mites and underneath too. But like I said, this is from last year. And here is where I want to show you the lemons. So you can see we've already lost some. See how this one is turning red? So that one's already going to just pick right off. We had already aborted it. So as I shake it, you can see any of the weak ones fall off. And I still have a few. These two are looking good. This one will probably abort. But the plant just does it itself. As you go up to this cluster that already went through it all. So I see right here, this cluster probably had 15 or 20 of them on it. Now it's just left with 2 or 3. Whether or not that guy right there will make it or not. That's completely normal, so do not stress. The nice bright white flowers, that's a fresh lemon flower. So that's in the process of fertilizing the new fruit. And when they start to get brown, that's when they've already done their purpose. The flowers, petals will kind of just fall off. And you're just going to be left with your baby lemons. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you learned something. If you have any questions, let me know. And if you haven't tried a lemon tree, I highly suggest it. It's one of my favorites. We'll see you around.
Maybe not sweet enough for Hobbs. Oh, I guess so. But so good, so sweet. You can eat it like an orange.